The US is kicking its trade dispute with China up a notch by threatening to impose 10% tariffs on an additional $200 billion worth of Chinese products. That's almost 6 times more than the amount targeted by levies that kicked in on Friday. The decision follows a warning by US President Donald Trump of more tariffs to come if China retaliated against last week's levies, which it did. The new US tariffs target commodities like steel and coal, but also hit food and consumer goods. Everyday items like furniture, apparel, beauty products, and pet food are among more than 1,000 products listed by the US. The latest decision would bring US tariffs of up to $250 billion worth of Chinese imports. China slammed the decision, calling it totally unacceptable, and pledged to fight back.
The US is being a typical bully on trade. China will take necessary action to protect our legal rights. This is a fight between unilateralism and multilateralism, protectionism and free trade, power and rules. China will stand on the right side with the international society and protect the multilateral trading system.
But the US has said it's ready to pull out more weapons in its arsenal if that happens, with further tariffs targeting another $200 billion of Chinese goods. The trade tit-for-tat has raised fear among investors that global growth could take a hit. Financial markets have been rattled at every sign of an escalation. And the warnings against Trump's protectionist policies aren't just coming from outside the United States.
This is most regrettable because the U.S.-China relationship has grown steadily. Actually, there are no winners in a trade war. Everyone loses. The workers of both sides, the consumers, the companies, and especially the consumers. And this will have long-lasting impacts on our economy and on the pocketbooks of everyday people.
But they'll have to brace for more shots to be fired in this trade war, as both the US and China show no signs of yielding to each other's demands. Laila Humairah, TRT World.
So let's bring in our guests. In Paris is TRT World's editor-at-large, Craig Copetas, and joining us from the Lancaster University Management School is Maurizio Zanardi. Great to have you both. Welcome. Maurizio, I want to start with you, if I may. Look, so far, a lot of economists have been saying that the amounts that are being hit with tariffs are too small to cause a real impact on global growth. Now we're kind of hitting 50% of Chinese exports to the US. Is that argument breaking down now, that the amounts are too small to affect growth?
Yes, I think that already before the argument was not very solid because what it was important was the signaling effect of the measures that the Trump administration was announcing on a weekly basis, if not more often. Now we are talking of almost 50% of the total value of export from China to the US possibly being subject to tariffs. A lot of these products are intermediate goods, which will then further spread in the economy, raising cost of many, many other industries. So this is now really serious. If already there was a signaling effect before, this is only now becoming even stronger.
But this is actually where it starts to get complicated, isn't it, Maurizio? Because China doesn't import as much as $250 billion worth of goods. So if China wants to retaliate to the same amount, what is it going to retaliate against? What's it going to have to do?
Well, but you know, President Trump is announcing tariffs of 10% on 200 billions. Well, then China could put a tariff of 20% of 100 billions. That could be a most direct options. But there are many other weapons in the arsenal of China. The United States is claiming that they are treating property rights in an unfair way. Well, they can do so even more. China is holding a huge amount of treasury bond of the United States. What if China starts selling all these bonds? So when we think of a trade war, we don't only have to think of trade measures to hit back among enemies.
But is that going to be within the WTO's rules, though, if it starts selling US treasuries?
Well, the WTO has no rules whatsoever about financial markets per se. China would say, as the person that was reported before, is abiding by the rules of law. They think that what the Trump administration is illegal under WTO rules. So therefore, they are using WTO rules and whatever else they can use.
Right. Oh, well, the WTO perhaps being sent to the sidelines. Craig, I want to bring you in. Look, the Chinese, as we heard in Laila's report there, saying that this is a fight between unilateralism and multilateralism. That's also showing through in Donald Trump's visit to the NATO summit, where he has been criticizing Germany for being essentially a puppet, too reliant on Russian oil and gas. I want to play a little soundbite of Donald Trump in a meeting with the Secretary General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, before we go on. Let's have a quick listen.
Germany is a captive of Russia because they supply. They got rid of their coal plants. They got rid of their nuclear. They're getting so much of the oil and gas from Russia. I think it's something that NATO has to look at. I think it's very inappropriate. You and I agree that it's inappropriate. I don't know what you can do about it now, but it certainly doesn't seem to make sense that they pay billions of dollars to Russia, and now we have to defend them against Russia.
Certainly not diplomatic language there. Craig, are the Chinese right?
I don't think they are. There's silly season on both sides here. Start with China. You know, China has retaliated with tariffs on piped natural gas. The problem is there's no piped natural gas, non-existent. Trump put tariffs on LNG from China. Guess what, no LNG from China. Then Trump the other day slapped tariffs on live Chinese trout. You know, the fish, car radios and tape players. Remember those 8 tracks?
Wow. And
electrical energy. When was the last time you saw an electrical cable from China to the U.S. supplying power to the U.S. power grid? There's a lot of this being listed here. Yeah. You're seeing the same thing going on in NATO. They're conflating the trade sector with the military sector, with the financial sector. Trump is playing a game here. Yeah. He's trying to throw red meat to his base, but what it actually is raw and rancid meat. Yeah,
Craig, Trump saying that, you know, Russia is too reliant, sorry, I beg your pardon, Germany is too reliant on Russian oil and gas. Is Germany captive to Russia?
No, that's nonsense. The pipeline he's talking about went into the deal in 2004, long before the troubles in the Ukraine and in the Crimea. Since 2014, all 29 members of NATO have upped the amount of money that they've paid. They're going to that percentage they're looking for. I believe it's 4%. They're agreed to do this by 2024. Germany, of course, is a net importer of Russian energy. George Bush, when president, warned the Germans if they stopped using coal and shut down their nuclear power industries, that they'd become more reliant on the Russians. But the bottom line here, is that Germany is by no means a puppet of Russia. Right. What is Trump doing here? Well, America is set up to overtake Saudi Arabia as the world's top oil producer in 2019. Right. Hey, Angela Merkel, you want energy? Buy it from America. That's what Trump's trying to do here, and he's doing it very poorly. Right, that's the message there on the European side. Maurizio, one final question before we go. Bringing back the issue of China. Look, these latest tariffs, they're targeting consumer goods. That's very different from the first round of tariffs, which mostly targeted components, intermediate goods. Is this the point where where consumers like you and I start feeling the pain of higher prices?
Yes, most definitely. And it's true that they are trying to target products for which there are substitutes. And in some cases, there are more substitutes than others. But at the end of the day, we will all feel the effect when we go to the supermarket or we go to a shopping mall. There is no way out of it. If the United States is importing 500 billion worth of goods from China, if there were cheap places producing at a cheaper price, they would have already imported from it.
Okay, we are going to have to leave it there. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. Maurizio Zanardi from Lancaster University and Craig Copetas in Paris. Thank you.